Welcome to the Movie in Your Mind podcast, where we dive into classic movies that have left a significant cultural mark, but that our guests have somehow never seen. Each episode, we explore their expectations and imagined ideas about these iconic films, then contrast them with their immediate reactions after finally viewing them. Today we are watching Fatal Attraction. Welcome to the Movie in Your Mind podcast. Today I'm joined by picture editor Jeremy Cohen.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going? What have you been up to? Have you been working on anything? Anything coming out that you're excited about?
Yeah, I just did this show, Laid, that just came out on Peacock, which is a really fun, dark comedy, like a twisted rom-com with a lot of death in it. Yeah. And I'm cutting a feature right now directed by Jorma Taccone of Lonely Island fame. That's also a dark thriller comedy thing.
Awesome. Yeah. And you edited Totally Killer, which is an awesome movie available on Amazon Prime.
It is streaming on your Amazon Prime streaming service. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great horror comedy 80s throwback movie. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah. It's like kind of Scream meets Back to the Future to a certain degree.
Yeah. That's a great description and equally fun. Growing up, how did you consume movies? Was it theaters?
Yeah, I mean, I went to movies as a kid in the theater. You know, I have lots of memories of going to the video store. I remember there were kind of weekly like creature features on in the DC area. Like on Saturday afternoons, they'd have like all the old black and white.
Right. Was that Channel 20?
It might have been, yeah. You know, I saw like Creature of the Black Lagoon and whatever the one with the giant radioactive ants and all the, you know. Them, I think. Yeah. You know, my parents were both movie fans. My dad especially had a pretty decent video collection. So break into those
like...
Oh, no. Like,
naughtily,
I mean, like,
no, and be like, I'm
yeah.
going to get some rated R action here.
Well, you know, later on, I was like, what is this 9.5 weeks? Is that Adrian Lyne, actually?
It is Adrian Lyne. I say Adrian Lyne, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, let's go with Lyne.
Yeah. Did you have older siblings? So your parents took you to a lot of movies, but did you have older siblings that would take you to something rated R, or were you the oldest, youngest?
I was the oldest, and so I didn't have any like secret movie source of that in that way. Sometimes my parents I don't know, I guess they like would rent something and just figure it was okay for my sister and I to watch, and then we'd be like, I don't know if I should have watched that. And like, I remember we saw like Lethal Weapon 2.
Pretty violent.
Yeah, I just remember them smashing a guy's head in a car door, and I started kind of freaking out as a kid. Like I was like, you know.
That's nasty.
But I also do remember there was Patsy Kensit too, so that was nice.
Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. The ones I remember seeing with my parents were the ones that I was like, oh, should I be seeing this with them right now? Yeah.
So they're next to you watching it. They're not just watch this. And then so after the fact, they're like, oh, that was maybe not so cool.
Yeah, there were more boobs than we thought there were going to be. You know, like
I think that's so funny that parents in the 80s just like rated R, whatever. Like my dad rented Escape from New York when I was like probably under 10 years old. And of course, my brother loved it and I loved it. And then later on, I think he apologized and said, Chris, I'm sorry. That was probably inappropriate for you. And I'm like, don't be sorry. I loved it. It was awesome. But it was
one story I have told is that like when I was younger, I remember like wandering into our living room and my dad's watching a movie and I just see two girls standing in the middle of the hallway and then blood pouring out of these elevators. And I just froze and started going like, ah! Yeah. And my dad was like, get out of here. Get out of here. Started screaming. So like between the trauma of the images and my dad screaming at me and stuff, like it was like, and you know, years later I saw The Shining and I remembered it. No question. I was just like, no, that's what I saw.
You cannot forget that. Yeah. Does it still hold a place in a traumatic place for you? Or you're
I mean, that's like a fundamental, like, I remember that and like Poltergeist, like the tree on the window and the clown thing.
Oh, the clown was so scary.
Again, I don't even know if Poltergeist, I don't think I saw the whole thing. I think it might have been they were watching and I tried watching a little and then I was like, I'm going to leave now. Or
Yeah. Exorcist and Jaws were horrible for me too.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was even edited for television, but I remember my dad looking at me and just saying, you know, this is all fake makeup, right? And I'm like, yeah, but it didn't matter. You know, you're watching this hardcore movie. And Jaws, I didn't learn to swim until much later. Yeah. And anytime the Jaws music would come on, I would jump off the floor because that meant I was not in the water, you know?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
so like it became almost a joke. My brother would turn on the music and just watch me like jump
Scramble.
from couch to couch because I'm like, I can't be in the water. It's so scary. Anyway.
Yeah, that did it made everybody scared of swimming, I think.
Wasn't that the tagline? Make you what is it? Make you scared to go back in the water? Or
So maybe. My dad actually used to always talk about it, but way before I saw it, he would talk about Alien being one of the scariest things he ever saw, and how he watched it through like clenched hands in the theater and stuff. So I was like, gotta watch that someday. But
so this movie, Fatal Attraction,
yeah. Oh yeah.
came out in 1987.
Right.
So obviously you weren't old enough to see it.
This is one that kind of fell through the cracks of me being too young to see it when it came out, and then when I got older, I just didn't go back to it or didn't fill in that gap, I guess. But yeah, I have some vague memory of it being in discussion or something. Like, it was like cause a cultural hubbub, I think, at the time.
Absolutely. More with your parents or with like people that you knew?
I'm tempted to make a joke about like, my parents and the affair they had. No, no, I don't know that they're...
Glenn Close kept stalking my dad?
Yeah, exactly. I remember that it was out there in the culture, and I think maybe my parents saw it or talked something about it. But
Right.
I don't think it was one that I was screened at home per se.
Right. Well, speaking of, not being too afraid to go back into the water, I remember all my mom's friends praising the movie because it made men really afraid to cheat. They were all like, well, maybe I'll think twice about this because maybe it's not going to go as well as you think it will. And I just thought that was hilarious. And I remember that being something I remember hearing before I saw the movie, that all these adults were discussing it, and like it was a little bit hush hush because I wasn't supposed to know, but they were talking about, I was I think old enough to know what cheating was, but no adult wants to discuss that with
right.
a child. So that's so funny that they'll let us watch The Shining or Exorcist, but something with lewd sex, they're like, get the hell out of here, you can't watch this. And I'm like, I think the horror will fuck you up more than just a few adults having sex. But
well, yeah, but the cheating aspect that you're talking about, I guess that could be like destabilizing if you're a kid and you have some happy family life image.
That's true. But I mean, like, am I even old enough to like comprehend that at that
Although
point?
that doesn't, and again, haven't seen the movie. That's why I'm here. But isn't there? I think there's some violence that
there might be. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Right.
You said people were talking about it. What's your impression of it in like film history? Is it an award-winning movie? Do people respect it, or is it just like an 80s thriller that people enjoy?
I think for a long while it was respected kind of as a like well done character study or like study of this situation, and then I think it maybe has gotten a little more problematic as far as the potential sexism in it, and again, haven't seen it so can't judge, but there was a reboot TV series.
Did you watch that?
I did not watch that.
Okay,
no.
good.
Which I heard was not very good, but I am a fan of Lizzie Kaplan. But
who isn't?
Yeah,
it's odd that her and Joshua Jackson they had no chemistry, no sexual chemistry. It's hard to explain chemistry, but it just was not there. And it's so odd when there's two actors who are both obviously capable, and it's not even sometimes people get along famously, like Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, and then couples that famously do not get on but have good chemistry, like Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
So it's just whatever it is, it can't just be blah.
Dead in the water. Yeah,
exactly. So
I mean, I think the other interesting thing is that there was kind of this line of Michael Douglas being the protagonist that is kind of morally dubious.
Yeah.
And kind of it's a strange role that he had, that he was kind of like likable but oily, and you kind of you kind of
your favorite scumbag.
Yeah, which is like a thing that you don't see anymore, really.
No, you don't. Which is really interesting. I love Basic Instinct has that sort of character arc for me, where it's like he will go swim out to sea as far as he can go morally, and then realize, oh, now I gotta swim back, and like, did I swim too far to make it back to shore? Right. And I kind of love that arc, and it's a very noirish arc. Yeah. So I love it. I wish they would bring it back, because who doesn't feel that way sometimes? Like, what am I doing? And
like you've gone past where you thought your anchors were, and
exactly.
I mean, I guess it probably started with Wall Street was before this movie, right?
They were filming it at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think they came out the same year.
All right.
Yeah. Platoon was 86, and then Oliver Stone jumped right in after and was like, I'm making Wall Street. And
so I guess that's, I I actually don't know what significant movies Michael Douglas was in before he started doing the
Romancing the Stone.
Oh,
would
right.
be,
So
like, the
that's
bigger
more
one.
straightforward.
Yeah,
And I mean, I
he's-
saw China Syndrome.
Right.
He's really good in,
Yeah.
but that's like a mid 70s movie.
Right.
But
And he's not the lead in that per se, right?
Yeah.
It's Jane Fonda. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of got the Han Solo thing going on, but he's a good guy in Romancing the Stone. I'd say, obviously, in Wall Street, he's completely morally bankrupt.
right.
But let's jump straight to it. How do you expect his character to be in this movie? Do you think he'll be a bad guy or a good guy who has a slip, or what do you think?
What I know of this movie basically is guy has a affair, sexually based affair with a woman, and who becomes a bit of a stalker.
Yeah.
And I do know that somebody's pet ends up getting boiled or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah. A rabbit, maybe? I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do know that spoiler, so.
But those are the only basic
That's
plot
pretty
points that
much
you
what I
Okay.
know.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I would assume, extrapolating from that, I mean, if we're going to be with him, maybe it's kind of a slip at first, but then they're kind of having a hot time of it. So they kind of gets carried away, and then he tries to pull the cord, and
Right.
then things, she's like, you're not letting me go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll make the first move? She'll make the first move? How do you think it'll go down initially?
Probably he starts chatting with her first, but then she comes on strong, and he's like, oh, okay. And then
Right.
this can be a thing. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Does he have a good relationship with his wife? What do you think that is
I think
like?
he probably does have a good relationship with his wife. I think that's maybe going to be part of the gray area of this. You know,
right.
maybe they have a good relationship, but they're not having sex anymore. So
Right.
this is exciting to him.
Yeah.
I don't know how many. Yeah, I'm sure that they have kids in the movie, but I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You think they have a bunch of kids?
2 kids. Let's go with
kids.
2.
All right, let's go with 2. And the family life is good, or do you think what kind of dad is he to the kids?
Yeah, I think he's like a decent dad, and that's why this kind of fundamentally destabilizes everything for him.
Right,
perhaps.
right.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of I don't know if this is a Michael Douglas image or just a image of the 80s, but I feel like wearing sweaters but with nothing underneath them.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe Adrian Lyne kind of invented that, possibly with Flashdance.
Okay.
Jennifer Beals
Right.
famously spills a Pepsi on her shirt and then has to take everything off.
Right.
But then so it has this oversized
Yeah.
sweatshirt or something like that.
Yeah, lots of very
very sexy.
and lots of images with like horizontal blinds,
Yes.
and smoky, and I do have like a Glenn Close image kind of that maybe I just melded Flashdance because of the kind of off the shoulder sweatshirt kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
But
Well,
maybe-
it is the 80s, It's
that was around.
late to mid 80s. I guess they shot in 86. So
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because Adrian Lyne, along the lines of Ridley Scott and Tony Scott, defined that look of the 80s.
Yeah.
That smoky, harsh lighting, sci-fi thing going on. And what are your feelings towards Adrian Lyne as far as movies? You had mentioned you saw 9.5 Weeks.
Yes, I saw certain parts
of it. Okay.
Yeah.
You scrubbed through 9.5 Weeks.
I think I did watch it at some point.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. I mean, in The Hunger is really
That's Tony Scott.
That's Tony Scott.
Yeah.
I get him confused.
Mm-hmm.
What else did
Classic
Adrian?
goth.
Oh well, Flashdance I saw.
Yes,
Flashdance.
Flashdance,
Is, yeah.
And then a little bit later, Jacob's Ladder.
Jacob's Ladder is a great movie that it's one of those ones that you forever feel like you need to rewatch and you haven't rewatched it, but
It's so
it
good.
was really freaky, Vietnam PTSD, sci-fi, going crazy, and people going with their faces. Yeah.
The Francis Bacon image is so crazy and so powerful, and I feel like nobody had seen it. So it looks like in 1980, Adrian Lyne did Foxes, and then Flashdance, then 9.5 Weeks, then Fatal Attraction. So we're not missing much.
Yeah. I mean, Flashdance was a key text of the 80s, I would say.
Absolutely.
Was she like a welder Flash dancer?
Yes,
Well,
because it was all in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so she was a steel worker by day and then,
and then a stripper
erotic
by
dancer
night.
by night.
But yeah, it just set like the aesthetics of the 80s. So and the music and
Absolutely.
Jennifer Beals pulling cables for buckets of water to fall on her.
Right.
Yeah.
So based on all that, the 80s and adding Adrian Lyne and Michael Douglas, what kind of tone do you expect here? Do you know is it a thriller or more sexy or
Flashdance, I guess, is even though she's a dancer, it's not that sex centered.
Right.
But I mean, I guess given 9.5 weeks, I would think that the sex will be a key part, at least early on in the movie.
He's not shy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's going to be what the attraction is between the two of them. And then things will go a bit south.
What do you think Michael Douglas's job will be?
Michael Douglas's job. He's a lawyer. He's
going to be a lawyer.
Yeah, Michael Douglas.
It was the 80s. That's a very, high-powered.
Yeah, some kind of corporate
intoxicating
lawyer.
job because he's corporate lawyer. Okay.
Corporate lawyer.
But like a dirty lawyer or a good lawyer?
I mean, I'm thinking that maybe this is like kind of a thing where he's going to be, for all intents and purposes, seems like he should be a straight good guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then has this kind of dalliance that he gets carried away with.
Right.
And then it destabilizes him.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Glenn Close. What are your impressions of her?
It's weird that I don't know that I have major Glenn Close impressions. Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
You've seen her in things, but
I have, and now I'm like trying to remember what. I mean, and I know I've been like, oh yeah, Glenn Close is great, but yeah, I don't know, man.
Did you see The Wife?
Never saw The Wife.
Okay.
I didn't see that one where she's dresses as a man, or
that
was like a couple years ago.
Hillbilly Elegy.
Didn't see Hillbilly Elegy. I mean,
this is interesting because Alex Gradette and I discussed. I think he had missed The Notebook or maybe Mean Girls, where you miss somebody's like arrival movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Are you aware that this is sort of Glenn Close's arrival movie where everyone
was it?
Like, yeah, like oh, Glenn Close, holy shit!
Who's this?
And like,
right,
exactly. So
I mean, the one thing that's interesting is that she kind of often comes off as somewhat of a kind of a cerebral actor. I feel like, to me, so this seems like that she's more known for her physicality in this, and she had very curly hair.
Yes, which is so 80s.
Yeah. Again, like, I just have images of her in some kind of sweats off the shoulder in this. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that could be Flashdance melding. Yeah, man. Well, now I kind of want to look up what her other big movies were now that I think about it.
Right.
But
well, what do you expect her character to be like? Who would be a good foil to Michael Douglas's lawyer?
Right.
Character?
Yeah, maybe she's some kind of creative. So that means that's where she's of interest to him, but then is unhinged. She's a painter, maybe.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the one, concern as far as the sexual politics of this is the idea of like the crazy woman, and it's all the woman's fault, and that crazy person. So that's the one fear I have going into this movie.
Right.
I've heard some people say, it doesn't age well, and some people say like, actually, it's better than you think it's going to be on that front. But we'll see.
And let's say, how are you expecting it to deal with that? I mean, it is from the 80s. It is a Michael Douglas movie, so there's a lot of testosterone flowing in its veins.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll come away from it being like, that was misunderstood, or, man, that really didn't...
It'll probably be like a little bit better than you might expect hearing the plot synopsis, but it's still going to have a couple moments where you're like, that doesn't age very well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So she's a tormented artist who can't get over Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
Okay.
She likes sleazy, oily men.
Right. So
I was going to go with something else, but I went with men at the end of that.
Yeah. But so
this is a PG podcast.
Yes. Do you know where any of the sex will take place?
I think it'll be like very impromptu, rushed locations at first, I think.
Right.
In a bathroom. I don't know. I think I must have seen a couple scenes or something from the movie, because I definitely have strong associations with kitchens in this movie.
Yeah, okay. That could be it.
Yeah.
So a lot of dishes clattering around.
A lot of kitchen, counters.
Yes, countertops. Okay, all right. And then, so how many times do you think they'll hook up, or will it be an ongoing affair for years, months?
I don't think this thing takes place over years and months, but yeah, I mean, I would assume that they, they hook up and kind of get going, and then somewhere in a little bit past the first third of the movie, he's going to be like, all right, I think we're good.
Right.
And then there may be a couple times where she does something, or they end up meeting up or something, and it still hook up, but then gradually he's going to be like, this is a bad situation. I need to, and then she starts terrorizing the family and the wife and then the end would be where things come to a head, or the, actual physical threats to the family, or having to physically stop her.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we go to murder here. Maybe
Right.
it ends up with somebody dead. Probably does, actually. It's the
Maybe.
80s.
It is the 80s. That's true. Yeah. Do you foresee a plot twist in Act 3?
Maybe this wasn't the first time, and the wife isn't actually that scandalized by it, but is just more that he brought it home is
Yeah.
making her mad. It's Ann Archer, right?
Ann Archer plays his wife. Will she find out about the affair? Or will he get away with it clean?
Oh, he's not getting away with this clean. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
How will she find out?
I mean, I think she's going to start doing the kind of moves of like, I'm going to tell your wife, I'm going to do this, like, or leaving info or messages or those kind of, that kind of thing is going to start happening. So yeah, it's not going to take that much for her to put it together.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, is there anything else that you're expecting that?
I mean, I'm interested to see, how much smoky kind of rooms we get, or not even smoky, but just that kind of the air in those kind of movies by these guys that just had like they filled a lot of
right.
And if we do, I would like to see if we have some horizontal blinds.
Yeah.
We'll see if I do see a off the shoulder sweatshirt or not, or if that's just my image. And like maybe we have to rate the oiliness of Michael Douglas on a scale.
Oh, right. How does he compare to Wall Street versus?
I guess Wall Street would be the 10, right?
That'll be the 10 oiliest.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So then this
he's
is
not
probably
so great in the game, but he's pretty oily in Basic Instinct. But at his core, he's a good guy.
Disclosure.
He's, I think, supposed to be a family man because it's
right.
It's not his fault.
He's the innocent one.
He's the innocent one.
Right.
The woman forces
so that's
him,
a better Michael Douglas.
Yeah, it's a better.
So let's see. So I guess this is like maybe going to be let's see a 7.
A 7.
Yeah. Let's say a 7, and I don't know. It could be an 8, and we didn't know it.
Right. All right. All right. Are you ready to watch?
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Attention! Spoilers ahead. We are about to jump into our deep examination of the movie. So if you haven't watched it yet, I strongly recommend you do to fully enjoy this discussion. If you're already familiar with the film, here's a quick refresher to set the stage.
Can we have 2 coffees, please? It's funny being a lawyer. It's like being a doctor. Everybody's telling you their innermost secrets.
Are you?
Am I what?
Discreet.
Yes, I'm discreet.
Me too.
And you're here with a strange girl, being a naughty boy.
I don't think having dinner with anybody's a crime.
Not yet.
Will it be?
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think it's gonna be up to you.
Can't say yet. I haven't made up my mind. We were attracted to each other at the party. That was obvious.
That was great.
Thank God.
You can change the tape if you want to.
Oh, no, this is great. I love Madame Butterfly.
Really? It's my favorite opera.
Mine too. It's the first opera I ever saw.
Please don't justify yourself as pathetic. If you tell me to fuck off, I'd have more respect for you.
All right, then fuck off. This has got to stop.
Dan, if you'd agreed to see me, I wouldn't have called you.
You get it? All right, it's over. There is nothing between us.
You mean you've had your fun, now you just want a quiet life?
Why are you doing this?
Doing what?
You need help.
Just don't tell me what I need.
You need to shrink. Is this what you want to talk about, our imaginary love affair?
I'm pregnant.
You don't,
Use anything? No. I had a very bad miscarriage last year. I didn't think I could get pregnant.
How do you know it's mine?
Because I don't sleep around.
I just want to be a part of your life.
Oh, this is the way you do it, huh? Showing up at my apartment?
What am I supposed to do? You won't answer my calls, you change your number. I mean, I'm not going to be ignored, Dan. Go ahead, hit me. If you can't fuck me, why don't you just hit me?
You're so sad. You know that, Alex? Lonely and very sad.
Don't you ever pity me,
I'll pity
smug
you.
bastard.
I'll pity you. I'll pity you because you're sick.
Why? Because I won't allow you to treat me like some slut you can just bang a couple of times and throw in the garbage?
I know who did this.
You do? Who?
Remember the girl who came to the apartment?
The one with the blonde hair. Do you have an affair with her?
Yes. Beth, I'm so sorry.
This is Beth Gallagher. If you ever come near my family again, I'll kill you. You understand?
So, wow. All
right, we just finished Fatal Attraction. Jeremy, how do you feel? What were the dominant emotions you experienced while watching this movie? Were you entertained, tense? Did you laugh? How do you feel?
It's a well-crafted movie for what it is, for sure.
Yeah.
I was definitely, it's a movie you watch and you kind of are weighing your own life experiences and different experiences,
okay.
kind of comparing and contrasting or I don't know. I mean, like I said, I was kind of like trying to figure out if it's problematic or not, but I think it's well done as a thriller and it's grounded, especially by Glenn Close's performance.
Yes.
You know, if it was the wrong performance, it would just be... wouldn't work.
Absolutely.
You know? I felt like the first, like before they get to the countryside was more effective for me.
Right.
I lose a little bit of a sense of what she's actually doing except torturing him.
Right.
But there's still well done thriller Hitchcockian kind of scenes in there. I mean, obviously the rabbit thing and then the way that the intercutting with the kid on the roller coaster and the mom rushing to get her and then, obviously when he goes to her apartment, that I think I was actually
Major
I was like, how much is left? And you're like, 18 minutes. And I was like, it's kind of slowed down. And then,
and then immediately after that, it's like this intense scene where Michael
yeah.
Douglas breaks into her apartment and assaults her physically.
Yeah.
That amped up the...
Exactly.
It went from 0 to 60 very quickly.
There's actually way less sex than I expected in the movie. Because there's
okay,
basically like...
It's
they
two
hook
nights.
up 2 nights, and that's it. Like I thought it was maybe going to be a little bit of an affair, before things went sour. And there's not ever
He runs around for one weekend. It's not like weeks long. Like, oh, when are you going to leave your wife or this or that? It's a tryst of 2 days.
Right.
And at one point you were saying it's starting to feel less grounded, and that was specifically when they went off to the country. Do you think? What was the tipping point?
Yeah, it was that she was following them to the country and stalking them, and it just felt like I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pinpoint what it is. Is it because they stopped having a relationship and then it became more of like the basic thriller? Because I thought the escalation is done really well. At first, she just wants to go to Madame Butterfly with him and be his friend. I mean, probably to try and get him back. But and then at a certain point, there is a tipping of it. But I still think it's done so well enough that you buy it. Right. But maybe it is that they stop having a relationship and it just becomes like this. She becomes like this monster that's attacking him without her character,
without a purpose. Like there's not really like a way that it would end up bringing him back in necessarily. I mean, and I guess that's maybe it's kind of beside the point when you're in this kind of genre, I guess.
Yes,
but the way it was piecemeal before, you could see the steps and they played naturally.
Absolutely.
In a much less dire state. But even if you're in a, going on a couple dates with somebody and then you're kind of not feeling it, but then they're saying like, oh, well, maybe we could just do this or do this, this, like, but just as friends. But it's like,
what's the point? Or
it's not like, well, it's not just what's the point, but it's like it's not just as friends. You know what I mean? Like, but that all like had some element of relatability to it.
Right.
But when it gets to like, it just goes into like, I wouldn't say science fiction, but it just doesn't feel like it comes from a real place anymore.
And I wonder,
it kind of comes from the convention of the genre.
Right. It just goes into the tropes.
It's still well done.
Right.
But it just didn't. Yeah, it wasn't as grounded to me.
I think part of it is also you just lose the character of Alex. Like if she had stayed in the movie somehow, because she has no friends, nobody to talk to. If they had like scenes with her therapist, and then they're trying to explain why she's doing this, and like maybe her psychosis, she goes off her meds or something like that, and then just to deliver a little bit more believability or like reason for her motivations might have helped in that sense. But in this, we're firmly on Michael Douglas's side. Point of view. So it had 6 nominations, right?
Oh.
In 1987, it was
she got nominated.
It was up for Best Picture. Yes,
Best
obviously.
Picture. Wow.
Best Actress in a Leading Role, Glenn Close. Best Actress in a Supporting Role, Anne Archer. Best Director, Adrian Lyne. And Best Writing Screenplay based on material from another medium, James Dearden. Oh, and then Best Film Editing.
Oh, I remarked on the editing.
Michael Kahn,
Michael Kahn was one of... There were 2 editors.
Yes,
but
and Peter Berg.
Michael Kahn is known for editing all of Spielberg's films.
And great. What did you think of the pace and the editing of
I mean, there were a couple of times I was like, oh, that was cool how that was edited. And
the rabbit reveal is really
the rabbit
great,
reveal, the
cross-cut.
intercutting. Yeah.
And I noticed that it's kind of an illusion because there's that low to the ground sort of following shot.
Going up to the rabbit.
Going up to the rabbit, and then that's alluded to when she runs up to Michael Douglas when he's feigning like that heart attack in Central Park.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that language is seeded early on in the movie, and then so it doesn't come out of nowhere, and it's
I remarked a couple times, but there's some interesting stuff done with colors and blacks and whites, and sometimes Alex like is all in white and in a white back, her whole apartment's white. And then like once things have turned a little darker, she's all in black. And then at some point, Michael Douglas is all in black. And then there's times where Alex is in black looking at the happy family life in the country. And they're all in white with the rabbit and in the white carpet. I guess I didn't really see horizontal blinds, really. Like
no, I don't think
not
they
that
were in
silhouette
there.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
there were a couple times where I did see the cloudy kitchen, like diffuse light kind of thing that I was talking about, like smoky looking.
Yeah. Well, I think it was definitely shot in New York. Like the apartments all felt real. Like I was remarking to you about how Michael Douglas's apartment feels cramped, even though it might be in a great neighborhood, and that she lives in the meatpacking district, which is more seedy and dark. And I love her,
especially in that era. The meatpacking district was really seedy.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, so did this help bring it out as like the cool, dope spot to live?
I mean, I don't think it wasn't even the cool, dope spot for like 15 more years. I don't think.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, she had a great big loft.
Yeah,
that she could afford.
It would be affordable. Yeah,
yeah, it would be affordable. And I love how the interior of the apartment building is like painted just pitch black.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of what he was stealing imagery from himself, basically, for Jacob's Ladder. There were a lot of scenes and, like the elevators and then the dark and the red light. And you're just like, oh, he's going into hell. And then obviously he would explore that more in Jacob's Ladder. But let's go into Glenn Close and the character. What did you think of her character? Did you think she was treated well?
I mean, it's not a fair...
Did it age well for you? Or did this feel 80s? Or did this feel...
It is problematic. But it is well done. It's like they do ground her initially pretty well, and then you kind of see a bit of a descent on her part. But I mean, she goes right to almost committing suicide as soon as he tries to leave her apartment
after that second date.
Yeah, and then it's the seesaw of like crazy behavior, and then coming back like, no, I'm okay.
Right. Thank you for helping me.
So she grounds it so well that you kind of buy it, and you don't. It's not like. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like almost a little bit like it's some dude taking the worst side of any person he's met and putting it into this.
Right.
You're not given enough to know what this character is actually about. Like, you don't know what her experience is, what her desperation or loneliness or whatever is about. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, she's a crazy woman.
Right.
Just the idea that of men dismissing women as crazy is a problematic thing in our media. And,
sure.
Yeah, and not...
This is paramount to that. I mean, I think this it just had a huge cultural impact where people would just be like, this and like Girl Interrupted, people would use it as almost shorthand. Or you're going to go Fatal Attraction on him or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of just created this sort of playbook, and just say you're pregnant and so that he doesn't leave and all these sort of things. I don't think it's art's job to necessarily address everything like that. This is clearly a movie that's, she's the antagonist and Michael Douglas is the main character, but maybe for the 80s they did a good job of humanizing her, or at least Glenn Close did a good job of humanizing her, especially the scene where she's like alone by herself, kind of like fidgeting with the lamp.
Yeah.
And I'm interested if younger people even know that sort of lamp switch that you can just fidget with. It's sort of like this wheel that you just turn on and off. And yeah, that's a powerful scene. And apparently Glenn Close consulted 2 psychiatrists about the character of Alex beforehand, and they both came away with the same conclusions, that she was probably like molested, as a child sexually, and then so had this problem with, sex and love, and anytime that would come up and get a problem that she would become violent and destructive because she has that past trauma that was not dealt with. But she also
so that's the kind of thing that would be like interesting to have.
Exactly, interesting to explore now. But she also said that like basically while they were making the movie, no one was like, oh, Alex has a mental problem. You know, everyone's just like, oh, she's just like you're saying, like a crazy psycho who's just gonna like come out.
I mean, it doesn't have. Well, I think at one point he does. You know, he is like crazy bitch or whatever, but like it doesn't quite go there in it. But yeah, it does, like you said, create the cultural framework for that kind of thing.
Right. I think there's some sister characters. The one that reminded me of Alex is Cameron Diaz in Vanilla Sky, who sleeps with Tom Cruise, and she literally has the line, "Your body makes a promise when you have sex," and Tom is just like, "Oh my God, she's crazy." And so I feel like this character, this trope, you know, has been perpetuated through Hollywood, through a lot of films. And
well, I'm going to take this on a little detour that we may or may not use. It's often like if you come upon somebody who is quite freely hot to trot or whatever,
single and ready to mingle.
You know, often I don't know. There is something about that. I don't know if it's a willingness to just like
experience sex.
Just lose yourself in a moment.
Right.
But if that speaks to some kind of fundamental lack of center in yourself or something.
Totally.
Because, you often find if that somebody who is like that.
Right. Like that makes sense that if you're like a spontaneous person who doesn't always have a regard for, what are the consequences of this?
Right.
Let's just have fun in the moment.
Yeah.
And then that can lead to other things. Yes, it's great now, but
and then you're like, this person's like kind of like,
I'm curious if this movie could work flipped with the sexes, you know, like would this ever happen?
Well, we should finish talking about, we should continue talking about this, but I am curious also about, because you did watch the new one?
I did, the series, yes.
Yeah. And so how, did they just give the Alex character more of a background?
They tried to, but it was not interesting. I feel like they tried.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it did. And like that was, I think their aim was, they were like, we're going to kind of right the wrongs of what they did in Fatal Attraction. But it just was not engaging, and they tried to, you know, she had a therapist here, and she did this, and I think he talked to like her family members who explored like a history of mental illness in her family.
Yeah.
But it wasn't engaging, and it didn't really like make the story any more interesting. For some reason, like I could see where they were trying. It almost like fell between the cracks where they didn't go far enough to make it a character study about her, where you sympathized and you were compassionate towards her point of view, and it wasn't an entertaining thriller from his point of view either. So you're just kind of like, that wasn't good. At least this one, it had a point of view, and it was very entertaining, and it touched upon, you know, certain other things that might have been problematic.
Well, it is also interesting in this movie that when she is given time to speak and she says, you know, so you get to just, you know, come into my life, do whatever, and and then say fuck off.
Yeah.
You're just here for you.
Right.
And, you know, I get fucked, not in the fun way.
Right.
She is given some moments to speak some truth, I think. But then, you know.
Takes it too far.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And then she's slitting her wrist in the next moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly.
Is it fair to say that you thought it would be more problematic?
Yeah. It's not like you can't just watch it and be like, okay, you know, this is just dated crap. Yeah, it has some basis in some form of reality.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's go to Anne Archer.
Yes,
what did you think of her
please.
performance and her as his wife?
I mean, first off, like as soon as it started, I was like, oh my God, Anne Archer is stunning.
Yes.
She's super attractive and gives a great performance as his wife. I mean, you actually made the joke, but it's kind of true. It's like there's a early scene where they go to this dinner and they come back and they're kind of flirting with each other a little bit, but he has to go walk the dog.
Right.
And then he comes back kind of ready to, you know, get down to business.
Yeah.
And then their kid is in the bed. So, and you're like, oh, the kid basically caused the whole thing, but it's kind of the truth. Like, it's basically like, I mean, it's kind of good that the movie doesn't set up that there's like some major rift between them.
Right.
It's just like, which does make him more sleazy, I guess.
Yeah.
The thing is that when he gets the opportunity, I mean, he's not even like, should I do this? He's just like, okay, let's go. Check, please.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know if that raises him to an 8 on the sleaze meter, maybe.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's that scene where they're together in the restaurant and he's basically like, is this going to happen?
Yeah.
And, no, or she asks him and he goes, well, I think it's completely up to you.
Yeah.
Basically saying, I'm open to this. And she's mulling it over saying, I'm not sure yet. And then I think it just cuts to them making out or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, did you find it even-handed, one-sided, two-sided, that they were obviously attracted to each other? And
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of have that interesting, it's kind of a cliche scene in the New York rain where his umbrella doesn't work, and so
Yeah,
they were
she
both
comes
at
over
this
the umbrella.
meeting, and then let's get a drink and wait out the rain.
It is
And-
pretty even-handed, actually. I
Yeah.
would say about like it's not really either of them who's really pushing it.
right.
Yeah,
right.
I mean they're both interested or at
Yes.
least flirtatious.
Right.
But neither of them is really the initiator. I mean, they first meet because they just end up at a bar standing next to each other.
yeah, exactly.
But later on, she's like, "Yeah, we had this instant attraction. I could tell, and that,
And he was very clear about being married from the jump. I mean,
Yeah.
when they meet at that,
she's like, that's my wife. Gotta
exactly,
go to,
that's my wife. You gotta go. And
Yeah.
so,
He's like, that's Ann Archer over there. yeah.
and we have to remark that yes, I mean, it's clear that he doesn't live with someone that he's bored with sexually, or that he.
You kind of get the sense that maybe they just don't have the opportunity,
Right,
which is
exactly.
yeah.
So, living in that small house, in that small apartment with like a kid that
And a
is
dog,
still
yeah.
kind of lives, will sleep in the bed sometimes.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the chance to get off. So,
Yeah, I remarked, what was it that he said? Like when they actually first have sex and when he and
well, first she goes, "Oh, that was wonderful."
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Oh, thank God." And to me,
oh,
I was
you
like,
think he was insecure about whether it was
yeah,
good?
was he almost like going like, "Oh, thank God you got off because I certainly did," and or was
right?
your interpretation of that he had been keeping this in for so long that
Yeah.
he finally got some release and sowed his wild oats or got whatever it was he got out of his system. So yeah, who knows? I mean, he
was
could
just-
be interpreted either way. Like,
Yeah, he was, thank God. Thank God.
he does say it very, very prominently. Like, oh, thank God. Like,
I thought it was also interesting in some of the sex scenes that they also played a bit of comedy with it too.
Yeah,
like it was
yeah.
kind of, it was intense, but then they would have him waddle around carrying
Yeah.
her with his pants around his ankles. And
yeah, I like that there is some awkwardness to their sex.
Yeah,
And-
yeah. And the elevator where they
Yeah,
stop between
yeah.
floors and he's awkwardly looking around is kind of
It's obviously about the thrill of cheating and being in these new places and having sex, just where the passion just overflows. You can't even just wait to get to the bed. You're,
Right,
you're
yeah.
doing it in the elevator. You're doing it in the kitchen on the dishes. And I
Yeah.
think Adrian Lyne said that he was like, there's no way we could film just sex in a bed. That's so boring. And so obviously they wanted to bring it into other cinematic places. But they did it well, and
there was kitchen sex, like
There
I
was
like I
kitchen
guess,
sex.
yeah.
yes.
Counter and kitchen sex.
Yes, but it still works for the story. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, they're gonna go do it in under the fountains of whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was funny though. I can't imagine a world where if like you're hooking up with somebody against a sink and then the water goes on in their ass, that they're gonna be like, oh wait, let's use this.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be like, ah.
Well, that's why Glenn Close is so hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
like-
That's what, like I said, she's just willing to dissolve her person for the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I did say though that the overall lesson of the movie seems to be wear a condom.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
It's another knock on the male species when he's like, wait a minute, are you not on something? As if
Yeah.
it's always on the woman to take care of the contraception, and he pays for it.
Yeah.
And that's a bold assumption, I think, even in the 80s, just to be like, oh, we're sleeping together. Shouldn't you be on something? Like, why didn't you pull out?
in
Like,
the
come on, like,
in the 80s especially, you should be wearing a condom.
exactly. In New York City?
Yeah.
In the meatpacking district?
Yeah. In the meatpacking district.
Yeah. But this is classic scumbag Michael Douglas. So,
Yeah.
like, he's always entertaining to watch.
Yeah,
So you said he was like on an 8?
I don't know. I mean,
scumbag scale?
he's 7 or 8. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I had him at a 7. I'm not sure if because it's the correct choice for the movie. I think that he's straight down for it immediately.
Yeah.
But that's what makes him more complicit in what happens after the fact, I guess.
I would lower it just because I think it was just, he wasn't seeking the opportunity. I think
Right.
it just came by and he was like, my wife's away for a weekend. All right, let's just do this. It was like Keanu said in that one movie, well, free pizza just showed up at the door, so. But that's one of Michael Douglas's magic powers is that he can do scummy things, but you still root for him somehow. You're just like, you want him to get away with it, or you empathize with him so much just because he's so watchable on screen, when he's like flustered and trying to, who's calling? Oh, it's Martha. Thank God it's Martha. It gives you a laugh and it gives you a release. And he's,
You're saying you'd give him a 6?
I'd 6 because like he is a good father. Like I think he did a sleazy thing, but like his other in Basic Instinct, let's say, he's doing blow. He's going crazy. He's like on a case and he's still like letting murderers go. Like that's a pretty big scumbag. So to this, I think he's. He had a scumbag moment,
right. But he's not an inveterate scumbag.
Yes,
like,
I think
he doesn't he's actually slow to have to try to do anything bad to Alex. Like he doesn't try to. Yeah,
he mends her wounds literally, and then eventually take her call and tries to do the right thing. So I think he tries.
Right.
Later on, he doesn't. It's questionable how he deals with it once things escalate. But
I did think though that when he reveals it to Ann Archer, I kind of wanted a little bit more from her character on that part. But
yeah.
Like,
were you surprised by how it got revealed? The affair that she kind of puts it together. Well, no, she doesn't actually put it together.
She doesn't have any idea. Yeah.
It's like the rabbit forces his hand.
Yeah. After that happened, I was gonna, when he's looking outside, I was gonna say to you jokingly, so anyways, I gotta tell you something. That's literally what he ends up saying. I guess you feel bad in any relationship when one of the pair has to deal with a bunch of shit just because of the other person. But
Ann Archer's completely innocent.
And she has to be like, and the character ends up being like a little bit one note because that's all she's given time or space to do. But
what did you think of the ending? Because there is an alternate ending.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. What did you think of the ending as it is?
It felt like somewhat inevitable that's where it was going to go.
Right.
It was kind of funny that we were talking before the movie, and I was kind of saying like, and I assume somebody might end up dead, but I was like, well, you stupid idiot. Like the movie's called Fatal Attraction,
right.
So obviously somebody's going to end up dead, and we know who it's going to be. It was well staged, I think, with the bathroom stuff. And
I think it's a classic 80s, roller coaster. Let them have it, give the audience what they want ending. Yeah. Which is basically why they made it, because the original ending had Alex take that knife that he placed down. Mm-hmm. When she goes to stab him
in her apartment.
In her apartment, he takes the knife away from her and then sets it down. So apparently, and it's very Madame Butterfly where she kills herself and then frames him because his fingerprints were on the knife. And then he goes to jail.
Okay.
And that's boom, end of the movie. So I almost feel like that might have been a more interesting movie.
Right.
But this ending is more satisfying in a narrower way.
As
Patrick Bateman would say from American Psycho. But apparently Glenn Close was very upset about the ending being changed because she's like, now you're turning me into this monster. This is the script said this. And it was going to be about her tragedy.
Well, that was the first... That part when she comes in to Ann Archer in the bathroom and she's like, what are you doing here? Right. That was like the first time where she's really just fucking...
Off the hinges. Yeah.
And she's like not lost contact with reality.
Right. Right.
So it was definitely a heightening... that's interesting. Yeah, I could see where she would be like, what the fuck? Like I signed up for this movie and now you're pulling the...
Exactly. And I think Ann Archer also was anti, but then Michael Douglas, he had some producing experience and he's like, no, this is what we should do. And I think it was after, I have to say the disclaimer, this is all from IMDb trivia, but they had a test screening with the original ending.
Yeah.
And nobody liked the ending. Everyone's like, I love the movie. The movie was going great. And that ending was such a bummer. We wanted her to get what was coming to her, Glenn Close's character, which is obviously
problematic.
Like this cultural problematic, misogyny lurking underneath that we've been dealing with for many, many years and still have not dealt with to this very day.
Yeah.
But having said that, the movie does call for it, and I feel like this is the difference between a hit movie in the 80s with the ending that we had, and then an introspective bummer of a movie that's you know, like an art house hit, or just like, hey man, did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
It's really depressing, but it's great.
It would be that movie. It would be like that one, like, oh yeah, there was this like weird Michael Douglas movie he made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then now it goes on, and I think this jump started the 90s thriller, sex thriller, thing.
Kind of launched it almost.
It launched it, yeah,
right?
exactly. After this, you had Hand that Rocks the Cradle, you had all those other movies where you're like, ooh, the nanny and him are having sex, and then she goes crazy, and then, and it's a great formula for that you can relate to. Because in a family dynamic, you're just like, oh, would my dad be able to handle this? Or, if I was a dad, would I be tempted by the babysitter? And so on and so forth.
Yeah, I was thinking about that Chris Rock bit about men are as faithful as their options. While watching it.
Do you think that's true?
I don't know. It's one of those lines where you're like, it's kind of funny. Is that true? I don't know. But I don't know.
Right. Also, you mentioned that one shot of her with the contacts in when he's drowning.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Adrian Lyne in the commentary mentioned that he goes, it was a mistake, that we made her too much of a monster with that shot, and he regrets shooting it that way.
Right.
Because obviously it was a pickup, and I think maybe they were just trying to show that, she was more monster-ish, and so...
Oh, I thought it was supposed to be that she was drowning or dying and her eyes were getting cloudy or something, but
it seemed that, but also...
Yeah. Which was also weird, but yeah.
I think you really have to dehumanize her in order for you to forget that she's pregnant. And and you're killing two people. Like,
I think it's a little ambiguous through the whole thing if she is really pregnant.
That's true.
But still,
you're not sure. They show her puking, and there's
right. They did right. I know. I thought it was ambiguous until she threw up. Yeah, he calls the doctor, but you don't know if it's a doctor.
Right.
But
it's still.
I guess she's pregnant.
The movie presents that she's pregnant, but you could say that maybe she thought she was pregnant.
Right.
If she had lost touch with reality, there's wiggle room a little bit.
Yeah.
But, so how do you think you would have felt seeing this in 1987, or maybe like on video a few years later?
If I'd seen it when I was young or whatever, I would have been like, oh my God. Like, I would have. It's like, why would you cheat?
Right.
Yeah. That's scary.
Well, I guess you're not too hard on it right now. You're not like, oh, this is just 80s trash. You were fully invested in it, and you weren't dinging it for just being.
I found my investment in it, like I said, lagged once they went to the country a little bit. But it does a lot of like kind of Hitchcocky kind of things that are cool. And I mean, it's and there's things that I don't know if they were. They probably already were cliches before this movie. Mm-hmm. Like the closing the mirror, or wiping the mirror, and she's standing there behind her, but still well done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I also thought, by the way, though, it was interesting that there was in the finale confrontation in the bathroom or whatever, there's sinks in the kitchen, there's the bathroom sinks, there's the bathtub.
Lots of running
water. But it's also
water.
calling back the earlier scene, the sex scene with the water too.
Right.
There was
and the suicide where he runs her wrists underwater too.
Right.
There's a lot of water.
Yeah. A lot of water imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that there are elements or motifs or themes like that in there, It's, I think I'm still going to be like thinking about it or probably looking into what people have to say about it these days.
Yeah, for sure.
It does have issues, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not total trash.
Yeah.
And it is well done for what it's doing.
Yes. I don't think the producers had any ill will, or they didn't make any like terrible misogynistic mistakes. I think their heart was in a good place. I think they gave Glenn Close the role of a lifetime. I think she was on the map after this. And and like you said, I think most filmmakers wouldn't even give Alex that much to say from her point of view at all in the 80s to begin with. So the fact that they gave her something, I don't want to sugarcoat the 80s and be like, well, at least they did something. But, I just don't feel like the filmmakers were overtly misogynistic. Maybe that's just my point of view. But it serves.
I mean,
as
there's a lot of
tentpole for this
misogyny.
time.
There's a lot of misogyny, obviously, implicit in the whole concept and the whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like compared to like, what would Michael Bay have made out of this movie?
Right.
What I'm saying? It feels a little bit more tempered to me.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to say tempered when it goes where it goes.
Yeah.
But
well, like the first half,
yeah.
It's like,
Well, it's interesting to like taking into account what you said about the ending and how that there was that that was the ending she originally signed on for.
Yeah.
And that they had to make her into more of a monster.
Exactly.
That's like where they had to pull out their stops, kind of.
Right.
But yes, I guess what you're saying is that basically in lesser hands, she would have been that character the entire movie.
Exactly.
She would have been that over the top,
Right.
not connected to reality.
Right.
And it's stronger for having her be more grounded.
I
sure.
think for sure. So, do you understand why this is a classic? I mean, we're basically saying that it's sort of like a tentpole for this discussion in film.
Yeah,
that's been going on. So
I think mostly it's because it set that the erotic thriller. It was kind of one of the launching pads for that entire run of films and stuff, which is also has been discussed now these days as a kind of film that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, maybe it's reflective of Gen Z and their lack of or their uncomfortability with sex. Yeah, and that there's no call for it. Even rom-coms are almost out of style now. So like even more awkward is a sex thriller.
Yeah.
But, I'm all here for it. But I think there's just so many landmines with it now. This is a hit, but who's going to take up the mantle and be like, I'm going to put a big sex thriller in everyone's face and you're going to like it.
Well, I mean, Baby Girl just came out, so we'll have to see how that...
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which throws it on its head a little bit.
Does it?
But,
Okay.
Yeah. Well...
I hear it's very erotic, but...
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much of a thriller it is. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just... Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting in light of the fact that they did try to remake this exact thing as a TV show, just...
Right, and it didn't work.
And it doesn't work, yeah. Like to do this requires a certain amount of lack of sensitivity that we're not allowed today.
Yeah.
But then now we're in Trump 2.0, so maybe you can bring them back now.
Do you think if this movie came out now, it would be a hit, or do you think people would have issues with it?
People would probably have issues with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would it be a hit?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that maybe is a hit that everybody's like, oh God, that's...
Avatar?
No, but like something that's actually like morally...
Oh, bankrupt, but with like, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when Limp Bizkit was a big hit, and you're just like,
right.
It's like, that's terrible.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because you don't discuss a movie unless it's a hit. Like if this came out and then everyone just voted with their dollar and ignored it, then you don't discuss it and that movie fades away.
Yeah.
And the only reason we're discussing this was because it had the cultural impact and it was a well-made movie and people loved it. So
yeah,
it's kind of like...
I mean, I could see where at the time it would be a very involving thriller and you'd be very... Yeah.
How do you think this would change if they did it today with like social media and everything like that? Like the stalking.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that
totally
actually...
different and more out of control.
Yeah, like the kind of stalking that they do, there'd definitely be her on her laptop going through. Yeah,
exactly. Or just like, oh, on my Ring doorbell, I saw you do this. And then, so there's a lot more surveillance and the game would change.
I mean, you definitely could do it. You could flip it. You could definitely do some like fucking weird incel dude.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
almost where we're at.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's the movie we need now is just to be like, Alex is an incel and he just won't let her go. And Fatal Attraction 2.0.
Incel attraction. Yeah.
So you do understand why this is a classic?
Yeah, I understand why it's classic. I don't know if it holds up as a classic per se.
Okay.
I think you can see the craft in the filmmaking. I think it has problematic parts. Definitely worth watching though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it in with Casablanca or
I would.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's so entertaining and of its genre, it's a classic. Like, I think the Glenn Close and Michael Douglas's performances are so good. Like, I get why, yes, it's not high art with a capital A.
No,
but I don't know, man. I think it's a classic.
There's still something a little icky about it to me. But
fair enough.
Yeah, just the concept is just like, it's based in a misogyny, like the crazy.
Sure, fair enough.
That
I
crazy
think I
woman.
was seeing it in the 80s as someone who didn't even think about that so much, as a teenager, having it injected into my brain then, I can circumvent all those problems.
Right.
Like, it's a Stone Cold classic. It's Fatal Attraction, of course.
Yeah.
Whereas,
I mean, if I had seen it
now,
if it is a movie that I had seen all along since I was a kid, I would make more apologies for it, or I would know where it was coming from.
Right.
Located. From that time.
And so how did this compare to the movie in your mind? Is it better, worse?
It's pretty similar to what I would imagine it would have ended up being, except for the fact that I thought there was actually going to be more sex in it.
You
probably.
thought it was right.
Yeah.
After 9.5 weeks, you were
like, exactly.
Yeah.
After stealing my dad's VHS, same director, figured.
I remember thinking 9.5 weeks was just Fatal Attraction light. It was just like, oh, if they were two consenting adults who decided to end their possibly psychotic relationship when they did, you get 9.5 weeks. And then when one of them decides not to end it, you get Fatal Attraction. It's almost, they're kind of mirror images of each other.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, Mickey Rourke is very obsessive in 9.5 weeks.
Yeah, he's kind of controlling of her.
Yes, very controlling. But she is there for it to a certain extent, but
until
she's
not.
not. Yeah, exactly. So that would be a very interesting double feature.
Those two?
Yeah.
I did. So we did see him wearing a sweater without a shirt underneath.
Oh,
but,
right. Yeah.
But it wasn't as featured as I thought. And and she was wearing a sweatshirt, but not over the shoulder.
It wasn't over the shoulder. Yeah.
Off the shoulder. Yeah. So that was me conflating Flashdance in this.
I think she could have easily, if she wasn't the mom role, I think they would have given her. Off the shoulder,
both of them wore
because I'm sure Ann Archer could have rocked.
Ann Archer was in a sweatshirt and Glenn Close was.
Yeah, right.
Also at a different point. Oh, we were remarking on how it was like how the school was just like, oh yeah, she went with some lady. Yeah. But that's the 80s,
Okay, I thought you already picked her up. Yeah. Like no sign in, no given name or anything like that.
Yeah, no ID. Just
I think that might have
created
a lot of helicopter parents, seeing
that
movie and being like, but what if Glenn Close and it's not even my fault, it's my husband who creates this monster who comes to
I will say I did like that she didn't do anything creepy she took the kid, that was creepy, but she just kind of was like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the amusement park and then drop her off and
right, she didn't chain her up or say your daddy did this to you or
yeah.
What'd you think of the humor in it? I found Michael Douglas really funny. I don't know if it's
some of his reactions.
Me, but I just love seeing a flustered Michael Douglas. It's just like there's something so enjoyable about that's why I love the game and because it's just him going, oh my god, and freaking out over things, and it's just
the game's great. Yeah,
it's so enjoyable to watch. I
thought he was great. He was Michael Douglas, man. He was solid.
And you were spot on with the lawyer thing.
Right. Yeah, he was a lawyer. She wasn't an artist, but she was on the more creative side.
Yes, she was an editor, so she was,
and she worked in literary stuff.
To a creative field, and she definitely had sort of the soul of an artist with the whole Madame Butterfly connection, and I think that's why she was like, "This is your favorite opera too," and then I think she definitely had that sort of crazy romantic side to her.
Right. Yeah, and she was swept up by. We had such a great connection day one. And
I'm curious if you think this movie is universal in that sense when you were saying, it seems like someone who took all the worst dates he's ever had and put them into a movie. That still applies, right? If you can, in the 80s, bad dates are still bad dates and that behavior doesn't change that much? Or do you think it's only slightly different because of digital dating? And
you mean is this behavior...
Is it timeless? Is this movie...
To a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. Yeah, there's definitely easily carry overable to the modern idiom.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, all the stalking stuff is easier.
Right.
I mean, people could find info about you and find...
Right. I mean, we were just remarking how easier it would have been for him to cheat since... The wife's just checking in on the answering machine. Where were you tonight? And he was like, I was out with my buddy all night. Sorry, I didn't call you back.
Right. The wife doesn't have the ability to be like,
find my phone.
Yeah, exactly. And what was the first? She asks, are you good with?
Are you good at keeping secrets? Are you discreet?
Discreet. Yes, discreet's the word I was looking for. Yeah. That's the part where when I look back at it, I'm kind of like, she was being like, can you keep a secret?
Right.
She wasn't like, hey, let's go
start
elope.
a
Yeah,
romance.
yeah.
He was like, yo, all right, you're gonna keep a secret. Let's do this because it's an open and shut case. Let's just do it. And then yeah, that's true. Not straight up entrapment, but she was presenting as if she didn't want anything else other than a
But also
tryst.
sometimes when somebody is emotionally manipulative, they'll do that kind of thing, and then
All right, well, lesson: wear a condom.
Yeah, I guess that's the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to finally see it. Now I can cross that one off the list.
Yeah. All right.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you for listening to the Movie in Your Mind podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Facebook. Email us at themovieinyourmindpodcast@gmail.com. Theme song track Odeon by Tomorrow's Tigers.